tell you, I might get a case of the giggles because my friend Erica drew a penis on my speech right before the intermission. Dr. Erica, you pediatrician, do you trust with your children? So, try to keep a straight face. Okay, that's great. Okay. Such an incredible honor to stand before you to discuss what has become a very relevant topic for women today, the now more than ever present idea of what it means to be courageous. It's one that I share with the other ladies who are here tonight and those who have presented in previous years. So a little bit about myself. Currently the chief designer for Albert's Diamond Jewelers. I've been in the jewelry business for 16 years. And it's a career that has run parallel to my time at art school in Los Angeles while working on my bachelor's degree and then my master's. I continued to work part-time when I became a special education history teacher and continued to do so once my children started school. It's a career that has allowed me to give back to my community in various ways and support causes that are dear to me. A lot of those causes have to do with children and women who have shown courage leaving abusive home lives. But I don't really want to talk about what I do today. I want to start with the why and why I do it. I had my mother's blessing to share sort of our story before tonight, and I assured her that this was a safe space because it's not a story that we share or talk about often. Some of my friends might know, but it's not something that we broadcast. And so when I learned about tonight's theme, I began to think about my life and what was significant and meaningful enough to share with you. And I spent time reflecting on my childhood, my young adulthood, womanhood, wifehood, motherhood, every hood in between, trying to figure out what it was there something, one thing singular that was significant enough to talk about? And I soon realized that each season of my life has brought with it its own set of challenges and tests of character and resilience and experiences that would leave me feeling vulnerable. These experiences would ultimately force me to make courageous decisions that were not always easy or comfortable. And as I dug deeper into each part of my life, I also realized that I had bore witness to the experiences of other women around me, beginning with my mother and now my friends who are with me here tonight. My story, you might find, is not so unlike yours or someone you know, because as women, we have encountered many of the same situations in our lives, and it's these shared experiences that bind us together and make us stronger. Where's the wine? Just kidding. My earliest recollection of what it meant to be a courageous woman begins with my mother, and it starts with one of my earliest memories of her, which is when she carefully placed me in what I'm sure was a very safe 1980s version of a children's car seat. In freezing weather, standing outside, buckling me in until she knew I was secure. Visions of a white furry hood and it being so cold that I could see her breath came to mind. Since my childhood, I knew that my mother always put me and everyone else in her life's needs before her own, and she still does it to this day. My father was an alcoholic and did drugs. And becoming a father, while always warm and affectionate towards me, seemed to bring at the same time the worst out in him. And he was not very nice to my mother. She did try to leave once when I was a baby, and she told me once again in the very cold, she bundled me up and tried to sneak out of their apartment in Chicago at night. And he must have heard the gate in their alleyway creak. So he followed her out of their apartment and grabbed her, and threatened to take me away from her if she ever tried to leave again. So she stayed. And I suppose that although difficult maybe to understand and explain to others, that sometimes staying, especially for the well-being of others, is a courageous act. Eventually, we did move away. I went to live with my grandmother, who, while living alone, suffered a bad fall. My father didn't get the message and moved with us. And like many who struggle with alcoholism, there were many good times, but an infinite number of bad. There were times when we did not see him for several weeks or months, and things seemed more peaceful when he wasn't around. But when he did come home, as I mentioned, for every glimmer of good, every laugh, every time I sat with him and watched a movie, it seemed just moments later a dark cloud seemed to cast a larger shadow. This cycle repeated itself for several years. And then around my 11th birthday, my grandmother suffered a severe stroke and was paralyzed on one side of her body, and relied on a wheelchair and full-time assistance for the next 6 years of her life. My mother became her full-time caregiver and did so while basically raising me as a single parent. My parents divorced when I was in high school, and I remember feeling a sense of happiness for my mother and a relief, but I also knew that the hurt he caused would last a lifetime. I only saw my father one more time when I was 19, and I visited him for a week during the summer. After that visit, I didn't hear from him for nearly 7 years. In March of 2009, we reconnected, and he called me as if no time had passed at all. And I always remember at the end of our conversations, he would tell me, "I love you." And I would awkwardly say, "I love you too." But I didn't know if I meant it, and I felt guilty about that. I asserted after so many calls that I would need to address with him what happened in the past in order to move forward in the future and establish any sort of present tense relationship. So our calls continued for a few months, and I confided in my mother often that I wish he didn't call me again, because now in my life, several years later, as an established adult, I have my dad, this black cloud around again. So on the morning of Mother's Day, actually, in 2009, just 2 months after hearing from him, and the first time in years, I woke up to several missed calls from a New Jersey police department. My eyes rolled and wondered, great, what did he do now? Would I have inherited my mother's burden now with my father in his old age? But this call was different than the calls my mother received when I was little. This call was to inform me that I needed to call the hospital because my father had been hit by a car and was in surgery and injured beyond optimism. The next call I received, I was told he was now on life support and that I needed to make the decision to keep him on it or not. I immediately called my mother, and she was at my house within what seemed like seconds. And after weighing my options, I decided to let him go. The next call I received is that my father passed away. Taking care of my grandmother and being married to a man like my father was both physically and emotionally intensive. Yet I continued to witness my mother's strength and courage over comfort nearly every single day of my life. Many years later, when I became a mother myself, and for some reason the sleepless nights I went through also brought upon memories of my mom being up several times a night, answering my grandmother's request for a bedpan and reassuring her that, "No, Mom, nothing is burning." Reflecting on these memories many years later provide us with some tears and many laughs, but also has me constantly wondering, how did she do it? How did she take care of my grandmother and never miss a beat with me? Never missed a volleyball or basketball game or a track meet. Room mother, Girl Scout leader, carpool parent, took my friends and I everywhere, a super mom with an envious sense of humor. And as I reflected on this part of my life and its relevance to this evening's theme of courage over comfort, I realized that the woman I am today, the ability I have to be all of the things necessary to be strong and caring and resilient and courageous, is because I had such a perfect example. As a young adult, I had experiences that many of us do: going to college, second-guessing ourselves, switching career paths, moving away from home, dating several Mr. Wrongs that helped shape my vision for the type of man who I would eventually want to share my life with. And it was this vision that ultimately led me to marrying my husband and starting a family with an incredible man named Josh. My husband is also the one who, right after my 30th birthday, discovered a large lump on the base of my neck. I immediately went to the doctor that same week and was referred to an ENT who ordered a CT scan. The scan revealed several rather large lymph nodes in less than desirable areas. 2 biopsies continued to reveal that the lymph nodes were benign, but something was definitely wrong. As the next few months passed, I experienced the onset of other symptoms, and after several tests, I was diagnosed with lupus. 5 years ago, I could barely use my hands on some days, and today I am able to sit and work on my jewelry sketches for hours at a time. I have often pushed myself in what you might consider a courageous manner in certain situations because the comfort and well-being and happiness of others was more important than my own. Once again, my story is not so unlike yours. Unfortunately, sitting beside you are women who suffer from autoimmune diseases, chronic illnesses, and cancer. There are far too few degrees of separation between each other from what plagues us or the ones that we love. I have witnessed courage over comfort while sitting next to a dear friend who had just arrived home from a biopsy. The symptoms we had in common definitely had me worried for her, but also prepared me to support and comfort her. Her call from the doctor, however, was not like mine, and hers revealed the presence of leukemia. For over 2 years, I have witnessed my strong friend work through the challenges she faces with grace and courage, and she's here today with me, and I'm happy to say that her hair is almost long enough to put in a ponytail. I carry a ponytail over my purse, so I'm like, Kate, come here, let me try it. So back to tonight's theme of courage over comfort. Throughout my life, through my own experiences by proxy, the shared experiences of others, I have learned that the shades of each day have us choosing courage over comfort, especially as women. Sometimes that choice is quiet, like pushing ourselves to get out of bed when we are hurting to get our kids ready for school, and no one knows about the pain except for us. Sometimes courage is much louder, like choosing a new career path and forging that path unapologetically and saying no when being agreeable is much easier. Angie Jones. I'm grateful for candid conversations with friends and opportunities like this evening with other women who choose to be courageous on their own terms each day. And I want to thank you so much for having me here tonight. And remember, as Dolly Parton once said, storms make trees take deeper roots. And thank you very much.